Okay, so I see okay, thanks. So I guess what we will do in this lesson is I'm going to share my screen and we are going to go to collaboratory. And once I am on the screen, I will not be able to see what you say on Zoom because I'm now using a single screen laptop. So if you need to interrupt me because I have said something that you don't understand, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question. What I think we will do is we will try practicing some examples with basically what I introduced you to last week, which is trying out arithmetic and logical operations and also conditionals, that is the if else statement. So I want to write a program that inputs a number, doubles it if it is less than 10, or halves it if it is greater than or equal to 10. So let the number be a, and let's say, okay, let the number be x. I am going to put a code block where if it says if x is less than 10, print 2 star x, else if x is greater than or equal to 10, print x by 2. So now if I give it, let's say, a number value 5, of course, if you are writing this as a code in a script on your command line, you can save this and you can use the input command here to take the value of x from the command line as a prompt after you say please enter a value for x, etc. So right, it should not be else if. In Python it's elif, right? So I made a mistake. Interesting. Of course, I'm making multiple syntax errors today. So this program works the way you want it to. If it is, for example, 15, it will return 7.5 because it's half. But this is not the only way to do it, and perhaps not even the most efficient way. I taught you how to do logical operations in the previous lecture, and logical operations can be used to do all of this in one line. So, for example, how I want you to appreciate that x less than 10 here now has a value which corresponds to whether it is true or false. And because x is 15, it's false. So now if I put this in a bracket and multiply it by 5, let's say any number, I will get a value of 0. And this is because Python applies the false is given the value of 0 and true is given the value of 1. So if I, for example, do this, I get 5. So this can also be seen as 1 star true is 1, whereas 1 star false is 0, right? So if you multiply two types of data, one which is an integer and one which is what is called a Boolean, which has either a value of truth or false, then Python interprets the Boolean value to have a numerical value. And how it does is it gives true the value of 1 and it gives false the value of 0. So that 1 star false will always give you 0. 1 star true will always give you 1. Okay, so now I can replace what I showed you here using these techniques with a single line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do x less than 10 times times 2 star x plus x greater than or equal to 10 star x by 2. Let's see what this does now. So x has a value of 15. If I run this, of course. So in mathematics, you are allowed to put brackets and then not use a star, but in programming, even if you use brackets, you have to put the operator after this. So let us now try what this does. See, it gives you 7.5. So you have a single line of code which gives you the same value as this statement with else and if. So if I try now for x equals 8, let's try. You'll get 16. Here also you get 16. So if you understand what has been done, this statement corresponds to this part, except instead of using an if and then a tabbed block to print something, I use this as a numerical value, which in this case will evaluate to 0 or 1, because true or false gets translated to 1 and 0 respectively. And then I multiply that by what you are printing here. And then you add to it another term, which it has a value 0 if this is true, but has a value of 1 if this is if the first term is false. And then I multiplied by this. So consequently, using logical operations alone, I have achieved an outcome that is similar to this simple program that I introduced earlier. Is this something you understand, or do you want me to go through this again? Does anyone have any questions? Okay, great. So I guess if you all understand if else correctly, I shall move on to a next concept in Python called data containers, which the simplest of these are what I call arrays dictionaries. We shall learn about data containers such as arrays and dictionaries, right? An array is at its simplest form in all types of programming, whether it is Python or C++ or so. It is a collection of data points. So if a equals 1, you are assigning an integer value to a. Let us look at r equals 2, 5, 7, 9, 12. So what I have given is now to an identifier called r, I have assigned an array which contains 5 numbers. Now the advantage of this is that I can now print out the entire array if I want. Or I can print out individual elements of the array. So 0 will give you the first element of the array. 2 will give you the third element of the array, because this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So if I try now 4, I get 12. So this is a simple container for different numbers that you can you can put many numbers together and access each number using its index. One of the things I want you to understand about Python indices is that if I use a negative index, it will just start from the end. So if I use now -1, it will give you 12. -2 will give you 9. See? -3 will give you 7. Whereas if you use 0 or positive integers, it will start from here. Some of you who may have used MATLAB or other types of programming languages or packages may be aware that in some of them, the indexing starts with 1, but in Python, the indexing starts with 0, which is, so for example, in MATLAB, if you are using an array, you would use array of 1 and you would get 2. In Python, you use array of 0 and you get 2. This is a pure convention. It is a rule you have to remember for Python. So we now learned that a negative index will just give you numbers starting from the end of the array. You can shorten an array using symbols like this. For example, if you use 2 colon, you get all numbers in the array after 2. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. Because I gave it 2 colon, it is giving me 7, 9, and 12. You can also, so you can do now 1 colon, and it will give you 5, 7, 9, and 12. Of course, if you wanted to do 0 colon, it is the same as the entire array, so it serves no purpose. If you put the colon before a number, then you get all the numbers up to that index. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Because I put colon 3, it gives me the first 3 numbers and not the fourth. Right? I can also put a colon -1, and then what it will do is it will give me all the numbers till 9. Because if you give an index -1, what it finds is this number. And then when you're putting the colon before it, what you're telling it is to find all numbers till 9. One of the advantages of Python arrays at this level is that unlike in any other programming language, the default array is very flexible. You can give it many types of data. So let us take an example. You can have 7, 5. So now you'll notice that one is an integer, one is the float, another integer. Then you can have a string. Then you can have a variable you have already declared, right? Let us try declaring this, and it does not complain. And now if you do print R2, you get the entire array, and everything you did with array 1 can be done with array 2 too. For example, if you use 0, it will give you 3. If you use 1, it will give you 7.5. So just to illustrate that, let me show you how this works exactly like the previous array. And if you give it the index 3, it will give you a string for cat. This is allowed only in Python, not in other programming languages, at least for the default container array. And that is because if you look at the type of this array that I have actually shown you, this is actually a list, not an array. And Python's default type of arrays are called lists. And they can contain any kind of data in them sequentially. So, for example, you can create now an array of, let's say, an integer, a floating point number, a string, let's call it cat, another array, a variable, another array, as well as another array. So if you now look at this, I have now created an array of a bunch of hybrid structures. This array can be indexed in the same way as previous arrays. So 1 gives you array of 3, the value of, okay, of course, I'm not using the correct identifier. So if I look at now the first position, it gives me 3.5. If I look at the third one, it will give me the value of A, which is 1. If I now look at 4, it will give me an entire array, which is array 2. And if I look at 5, it will give me an entire array, which is array 3. Now, you can quickly also nest this. That is, we know that the fifth element of this array is an array itself. So you can again put in another index, 3, and now you can pull out an element of an array which is within an array. So this is now a sub-array, right? These are very useful things to know when you start operating with lists in Python. At this level, I am using the terms list and array interchangeably, but they're not so, because later when you learn about NumPy, etc., NumPy arrays are C++ arrays, in the sense it is a fast package that has been developed in order to allow fast numerical computation. And so if this was a NumPy array, you cannot mix different data types. You cannot put a string and a number all in one go. Well, not by default. You have to put in some effort. Now, one of the things I want you to know is that this double indexing of this identifier is allowed only because the sub element is an array. That is, I made one array the member of another array. If on the other hand, I was looking at, let's say, the first or the second, let's say the second element of this array, it would produce an error, I believe. Yes. This is because with this step, I am returning this is the 0th element, this is the first element. So by calling 1, I'm returning this number, which is now not an array. Consequently, if I give it another subscript, which is what Python calls an index, it will just give you an error. However, if you do this to number 2, which is, so the 0th element, the first element, and this is the second element. The second element of this array is a string. Now, if you did this to that number, it gives you the letter T. And this is because Python interprets a collection of alphabets that you declare like this as an array of alphabets. Any string is an array of alphabets. So, for example, if I now give 3, it will complain that it is out of range. This is because this string that you see here is a collection of individual alphabets, where the 0th, which is treated like an array, the 0th alphabet is C, the first alphabet is A, the second alphabet is T, and there is no third alphabet. So since I gave it 3 here, it complains that the index is out of range. So the lesson I want you to understand from this is that you can declare any string and while Python will tell you that the type of the string is the data type string, a string works exactly like an array. So let us try k of 0 will give you m, right? K of 4 will give you a, which corresponds to this one, and k of -1 will give you z, right? So Python treats every string like an array. Now, once you have a string saved as an array in memory, you have many fun things you can do with it. For example, if your string is a sentence, you can do split, and you can get the words out of it by giving it what you want to split it by. So now let's see what we get from this. If you this is the identifier for a sentence, which is my name is Ramiz. If you use the split command and then give it the item you want to split by, which is in this case a space, it looks through the string, finds where all there are spaces, and it splits it into substrings. So now you have 4 strings. As you can see, this is now as good as an array of strings, which is essentially an array of arrays. So let us check the type of words. It'll tell you it's a list, which is exactly what I also told you was array. It'll give you it is a list. So now you can get the first word in the sentence because the indexing is 0, the second word in the sentence is 1, is name. The third word is etc. This is, of course, this is why, for example, people find Python extremely useful in scripting. For example, if you want to, let us say, take a body of text, parse through it, extract numbers, etc., Python is almost always the easiest language to use for such an application. Let us examine, for example, alternate ways to split this. So I'm just giving it a name. Let us now split where k is still the string. I am now splitting it. Instead of using a space, I will split it using the alphabet A. Let us see can anyone guess what we will get from this? If you wish to speak up, you can. But okay, we can take a look at what we will get from Gibbs. And you see, what has been done is it has taken this much to be the first. It has split the string according to the letter A, which means that until it finds an A, it has turned everything into the first element of the array. Everything after the A till the next A is the next element of the array, and everything after that A is the third element of the array. So this split is very useful from that point of view. Let us take a look at what else can be done with K. So I told you that one of the advantages of using Python is that, especially in collaboratory or in Jupyter, is that you don't need to remember what are the options that are there. They will pop up like this. So if you want to, for example, find the index corresponding to, let's say, the first space, then you can use find, and let us try giving it a space. So this, I have entered a space here, a blank, and let us now try assigning this to the value of int. I'm guessing what the answer will be. I'm hopeful that it will be the index corresponding to the space. So let us try. Excellent. So 0, 1, and 2. So what this means is if I now give k of int, I will get a space, right? Similarly, I can give it k of, let's say, find a, and I get a. This is because what this find option does is it operates on the string, and it assigns to, it returns the value which corresponds to the index at which you find a. So these are cool tricks to play around with. The other options that you will find, for example, are, you will see that there is something called count. Let us see what k.count does. Maybe it will give you the total number of characters in it. Nope. Okay. So you have to give count an argument, let us give it again a space. Then it gives you the number of spaces in the sentence. See, there are 3 spaces, and you can get that with k.count. You can count the number of times the alphabet M is in the sentence by using k.m, because you see there is an M here, there is an M here, and there is an M. If you, on the other hand, try to count the number of times R is, it's there only once, because there is R only once. So I just want to remind you that all the options of a type of data in Python can be found in Collaboratory by just assigning that type of data to an identifier, which is here k, and then just put a dot and wait for it to suggest things to you. So this is of course very useful. One of the ways it can be very useful is, for example, imagine I want to count the number of words in a passage. So let's search for let me try a poem which is given by, this is a poem by William Butler Yeats that I kind of enjoy. And let me find my Collaboratory window. It would appear that I don't. Yeah. So this is my Collaboratory window. I can assign this poem to the identifier poem, and now, of course, I believe this will cause a problem because of things like, let us try what this does. Nope, of course, because I just pasted, a string with commas inside, etc. So what I should do ideally is not split it up into lines. So sometimes you have to do these things manually, but when you learn file operations, you can also read this out of a file and join things up. Now, so I am now I have assigned the poem to an identifier poem. And if you want to now count the words in this poem, all you need to do is k equals poem dot, let's say, words equals poem dot split by alphabet and len of words. So this is one way to get a length of an array. So you find out that there are 61 words in this poem. Another way is to just maybe count the number of spaces. It will probably return a value different because the number of spaces does not correspond to the number of words. So let's try this. Poem.count will give you 60. Yeah, because you have two words, then you have one space in between. So if you count the number of spaces, you get one less. So these sort of easy operations with strings and arrays is one of the reasons Python is considered an extremely good language for scripting, for formatting things, etc., for holding together other bits of code, for let's say, it's basically called scripting. And you now learned a bunch of things one can do with lists and arrays in Python. Does anyone have any questions, any part of this, what I have shown so far, that you do not understand? If you do, please raise your hand or ask, or just unmute yourself and ask a question. If not, I can introduce you. Okay, I see one thumbs up, assuming that means no question. Great, no question. So I think we should move on to one of the most important things in programming you will ever come across, which is the concept of loops. And the simplest loop is a loop that you will operate with an array in Python, and I will call it a for loop. So now I am introducing, watch closely what I do. For I in words, print I. Let us examine what this does. Of course, I forgot the in. There should be an in here. And you notice that it is printing each word one by one, right? And this is because, like I said, if you split the poem by the spaces, you get an array of the words inside. And if I do now for I in words, you get to print each of the word. You can also do other things like len of I, which will now give you the length of each word, right? So the word embroidered has 11 alphabets, which is why you see 11, but most words in this seem to have, let's say, 3 to 5 alphabets in the words. So to explain this, the idea of a loop more completely, what I want you to understand is that if I put for, and then I put an identifier, and then I put in, and then I give it an array, and then I give an operation here, this operation is repeated for each element in the array in the order of the array, right? So, for example, you can do this also with our first array, which we called array1. So let us try this. For I in ar, print I. See, you get 2, 5, 7, 9, 12, because those are the elements you gave in the array. If you want to go element by element and let's say produce the square of a number, so in C++ or any other programming language, if you want to find the square of a number or one number raised to another power, you would normally use this symbol. But this is not something that Python recognizes. Python instead uses this. So let us try this. You get the square of each of the numbers. So 2 square is 4, 5 square is 25, 7 square is 49, 9 square is 81, and 12 square is 144. You can now use an array for useful purposes, like let us say you want to sum all the, you can use a loop, a for loop for useful purposes. Let us assume you want to sum all the elements in an array. For I in add, sum equals sum plus I. And then print sum. Now, here is something I want you to notice carefully what I'm doing. What you see here is that I have initiated an identifier to the value 0. I have now gone through each element in the array and added it to that identifier. Then I'm printing that identifier. So what you now get is you basically get all the elements of this added up. So you get 2 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 12. For those of you who may be a little confused by this indenting that I do in Python, I want to illustrate a point, which is if you run this code, you just get your final value, which is this the variable sum. Whereas if I now introduce another intent here, let us see what happens. You notice that for each time in the array, it is printing sum. So it initially prints 2, then it prints 2 plus 5, which is 7. Then it prints 2 plus 5 plus 7, which is 14. Then it prints 2 plus 5 plus 7 plus 11, which is, so it is, as you add, it is printing this. And this is because of this intended block here. So what I wish to emphasize with this is that for an operation like if or for a loop, once you specify the header of that operation, the conditional or a loop, everything that is in an intended block, Python will consider it part of the loop and introduce it. Or now, for example, I can do also print I, and what it does is, you see it is printing 2 and 2, which is the sum. Now it's printing 5 and 2 plus 5, which is 7. Then it's printing 7 and 7 plus 7, which is 14. Then it's printing 9 and 9 plus 14, which is 23, etc. So, and this is happening only because all three are in the same intended block. Let us experiment once more with this to understand the concept of intended blocks, which is I type in the same thing, but I remove the intent here. Now what will happen is it goes through the array, it prints all the elements of the array, and then once it executes this line. So the question of whether this intent exists or not really determines whether Python executes a command for every time in the array or once afterwards, right? And you can see that 2, 5, 7, 9, 12 is the values of the array, which is I in the number. The value of I corresponding to the different elements of the array, and then it will print what is the sum of these things once, because it is out of the intended block. Whereas if it was inside the intended block, it prints it every time the loop is being executed. So these are the things for a loop. Now, I had earlier shown you that you can I had shown you conditionals, I have shown you loops. You can use both of them together now. For example, you can say for I in add, if I less than 3, print I star 2, elif I greater than or equal to 3, print I by 2. If I do this, what you notice is that this loop now operates through each element in the array. Then the if is nested inside. So this what one additional intended block tells Python that you want this if condition to be evaluated for each element in the array, and then depending upon what it is, it on these conditions, it operates on each element in the array. So you can see that let us also put a print I here just to understand. So it is now going through each element in the array. So in the first case, it is 2. 2 is less than 3, so it doubles it. The second case, it is 5. 5 is greater than 3, so it halves it and gives you 2.5. And third one is 7. 7 is greater than 3, so it gives you half of it, etc. So you have two levels of intents here. You have, for the for loop, you have a level of intent telling Python that everything at this level or higher needs to be executed for each time in the array. And then you have this if condition, which has its own further intended block, as well as an elif condition, which has further intended block. This is called the nesting of two types of operations. So here we are nesting a loop and a conditional. You can do anything. You can do, you can also nest a loop inside a conditional. Here you have nested a conditional inside a loop because at the base level, this is a loop. And for each element in the loop, we are evaluating conditionals. You can, for example, do if a greater than 5 for I in add, print I and elif else print A. Let's try what this does. Let's see what this does. So it has printed the value of A, which is 1, but now let's try giving it A equals 10. We are changing the value, and what it does is, see, it evaluates this conditional first. A has a value of 10, which is greater than 5. So then it goes on to this intended block, which is a for loop, and it runs that, where it accesses the array that we have declared earlier, and it gives you all the elements of the array. So in the previous lecture, I taught you about conditionals, which is if else. In this lecture, I have taught you about the most elementary loop possible in Python, which is a for loop. You can nest both. That is, you can put a for loop inside an if-else statement, or you can put an if-else statement inside a for loop. And it all really depends on how you specify these spaces in Python. So I think the only way for you to get these things airtight is to actually take a bit of open collaboratory and play with this. Try out many things. Try doing new things. look for exercises including loops and conditionals, and play with them in collaboratory. Does anyone have any questions right now? If you have any questions, you can please raise your hands or just speak up. Can you hear me? Am I still connected? Can someone put a thumbs up? Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, I see one raised hand. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like. Oh, Subodh?
Yeah, so Ramesh, you know that the students are not allowed to unmute. The host has to allow them to unmute. So
okay, sure.
Yeah, so it's a bit unpractical. But secondly, I just wanted to ask, are you going to post your collaboratory notebook somewhere for the students? Because I see there's a lot of questions about syntax and things like this, and I think often what is happening is that the questions are basically the students are not transcribing the precise expressions, and then they're getting errors, and so it's very hard to explain. Oh, you missed a space here, or you missed a comma here. So are you going
sure.
to? Are you? It'd be really helpful to post links. Maybe set up a special account for this academy, and where these notebooks are available online, so people can just look at them. Yeah.
Yeah, I will actually. I'll definitely make this notebook and the previous lectures notebook available online. I'm sorry that I did not post anything in advance of this lecture. I was just extremely busy at work, and I didn't have time. Sorry. But after this lecture today, I will be posting this notebook as well as the previous notebook onto the course page, so that you can download it and you can put it in your collaboratory and play with it.
So what I would recommend, so what I would recommend for students is, if you had some difficulty following today's lecture, or there were some things you wanted to go over again, it would be a good idea to, once Ramesh posts this notebook, is to open it up on Collaboratory or download it and rewatch the problem session, and just then scroll through the notebook as Ramesh is explaining it. So that way you will see everything happening, and you'll have the notebook in front of you to play around with as that's happening. So that would be a useful way, I think, to reinforce today's material.
Yeah. I will look at the. Sorry, let me look at the chat, because I was using because I was using just one screen. I hadn't seen the chat so far. So someone was commenting that print array 3 is showing type error. Let us try out what is happening. So this works, right? Maybe it is because the way you typed it, there is a space, but that doesn't seem to be a problem. Is it? Nope. Okay. So I cannot reproduce the error that you're complaining about in the chat, and that is, someone asked me what is Gibbs. That was just an arbitrary identifier I use. So eventually, when you write code, I would strongly suggest that you use identifiers that make sense to you. For example, if you have a value that is supposed to be, say, the interest payment you have to make, you call your variable the interest payment. But the programming language will accept any name, and sometimes I'm not very imaginative with names. I see another question, which is, usually in other programming languages, the syntax of for loop is as follows: for initialization, condition, increment, decrement. Is it not required in Python? Well, the way I have used a for loop here is always using an array. So you notice that this is a variable that I've never declared before. And here there is an array. So what Python does is it repeats this line as many times as there are elements in this array, with the value of I corresponding to each element of the array. There are loops of more complexity in Python, which is called a while loop, for example, which hopefully JCK will teach you in the next lecture, which will have the format that you specify, Yamini, which is called for initialization contingent increment. But in general, Python is more user friendly. For example, you see that this is more, at least to me, this is more intuitive than the C++ loop type that you have mentioned. The other, yeah. So I don't see any.
Just a comment on the syntax error that I think Mohammed Sahil was finding. I think that there was so I think Mohammed Sahil was writing R and then brackets 3, but I think the array was actually called ARR3, right? So it's a minor typo in the command.
Yeah, that's possible, but okay. In my notebook, at least, I also have a Python, an array called AR. So if you call AR of 3, you should get 7, or sorry, 0, 1, 2, you should get 9, I think.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, so if it shows you a type error, let us try this. Maybe if I have an undeclared array and I use something, it will produce a say R4 of 3. This R4 is not something I have declared, so but it is not giving me a type error, it is giving me a name error. So so I'm not sure. I will be posting this Jupyter notebook, Sahil. Please download the Jupyter notebook and try playing with what you are trying to do with the help of this Jupyter notebook. If you cannot figure it out yourself, if you send me your Jupyter notebook, then I can help you. Okay. Just email it to me. I'm pretty sure. I think my email has been provided on the course page, right? It is. You can send it to me on physics@gmail.com. So sorry, this is. It went to. I should have sent this to everyone. Yeah. I think that's all I had for today's class. In 6 minutes, I cannot begin a new concept, and I believe I have taken you through conditionals, which is if-else statements, and as well as the simplest loop, which is a for loop, and how to nest them back and forth. So you can put a for loop inside a conditional, or you can put a conditional inside a for loop. And I have given you examples of both. I will be posting this notebook and you can play with it. And hopefully you will be able to adapt these to more complicated settings. In the next lecture, JCK will be teaching you about more complex loops. So while loops, for loops of the very specific kind that people were asking about, because Python is almost like a human language. You can make it do things quite a bit using intuition. And JCK will also be teaching you more advanced containers like dictionaries and how to combine all of these to produce more complex logic. Thank you for connecting. I think I will. So
Ramesh, may I just I'm just going to share my screen really quickly and
sure. I will stop my share then.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show students, so because there's a lot of questions about how to actually access. Let me actually grab this. So, what am I trying to do? Okay, so look, so there are a lot of questions about where to access lectures, where to find previous lectures, and so on and so forth. So, if you have signed up for Digital Nalanda, and if you have signed up for this coding academy, then you will have been registered for the School of Information and Data Science. So a lot of the questions that have been asked, all of the information is available on this page. Okay, so these are links to the live sessions. You can download the schedule according to when the different lectures are. And every week we try to update. So this is this is not organized quite how we would like. So there has been a previous session. So there are lectures here. You're welcome to look at those. But what we would like to do is have a separate set of links for the Coding Academy itself. And as you can see, you can find previous lectures. So this will be today's lecture posted, obviously. And there are links to slides and anything else that Ramiz decides to post, you'll be able to find here as well. So you keep a lookout on these pages, because there will be more resources posted and updated as the course progresses. If students had questions about other things, this is the classroom material, if you like. Okay, so of course, some of you are already familiar with this, but for those who are just joining Digital Nalanda and not familiar with this setup, this is where you find all the information that you need. There's also a community page. So let me just, in case students are not familiar with this, let me just quickly show how that works. Maybe, no, where do I go? So if I go back to school, so where's the community? Okay, so I guess the community page is somewhere else. So how do we find the community page? So Dhiraj, can you help me? I forget where do I look for the community?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Courses, dashboard.
Dashboard. Okay.
Yes.
So see. Very good. Okay. So
second point, to join our discussion forum.
Yeah. Okay. So over here there is a community page, and if you click on the bottom link for the School of Information and Data Science, right? So you see here, there's lots of. So somebody already posted this link, of course. So of course some of you are already familiar with this. But here, so try not to post specifically on the. So there's lots of questions appearing here. So these are for all live classes. So this includes all the other streams in Digital Nalanda. But if we want to have just like a little private chat board for us, just click on School of Information and Data Science. And what we've been encouraging people to do is to form groups, get on WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever, and help each other out. As Ramiz has alluded to, has mentioned, we're both very busy. We're both professors at our respective universities, and JCK and Dika are both, they work full-time jobs. So we'll do our best to address any questions and help out, but we don't always have the time to. And so as much as you can help each other, that would be really fantastic for us and for you, and as much as you can learn from each other. But that's it. This is just what I wanted to show you guys, is how to navigate the different resources on Digital Nalanda. So please do keep a lookout on the actual homepage for the course. Let's get back to this the course page. Yep. So please do keep a lookout here. More and more material will be posted as things progress. Okay. So I'm stop sharing now. So thank you very much, everybody. See you on Saturday for Saturday's lecture.
Thank you, everybody, for joining this session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ramesh, sir, and Subodh, sir.